In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Dear audience, Assalamu alaikum. This is Language and Linguistics Online. Today I intend to talk about predicative complements. There are also NPs which follow a verb but which do not behave as direct object or indirect objects. Consider the following sentences. This is my ultimate goal. Michael became an architect. They elected Graham chairman. I consider Andrew the best writer. So this is my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is referring back to this, which is the subject of the sentence here. Michael became an architect. So architect is an NP, noun phrase, which is telling us about Michael. They elected Graham chairman. So chairman is an NP which is telling us about Graham, which is an object of the sentence. I consider Andrew the best writer. So the best writer is telling us about Andrew, who is the object of the sentence. So in the very first two examples, the complement, which means to complete the sentence, it is telling us about the subject part of the sentence. So we can say in sentence 1 and sentence 2, this is my ultimate goal. Michael became an architect, that they are the subjective complements. On the other hand, they elected Graham chairman. Chairman is telling us about Graham, which is the object of the sentence. So chairman is the objective complement. I consider Andrew the best writer. The best writer is telling us about Andrew. Again, the best writer is the objective complement. It means that, dear audience, that predicative complement can be of two kinds, subjective complement as well as objective complement. If the NP, which is coming after the verb phrase, it is telling us about the subject part of the sentence, it is the subjective complement. If it is telling us about the object of the sentence, it is the objective complement. Remember, complement is an NP which cannot be converted into the passive voice. In my last class, I have already talked about objecthood of the sentence, where I have discussed that passivization is one of the tests that can help us to understand what is the objecthood of the sentence. So these NPs, ultimate goal, an architect, chairman, the best writer, they are italicized here and they are the predicative complements. But the first two are subjective complements and the last two are objective complements. And as I have told you that they cannot be passivized. Chairman was elected Graham, the best writer was considered Andrew. So this is how we cannot convert them into the passive voice. They are the wrong sentences. The difference between objects and predicative complements can also be seen in the following contrasts. Remember, John made Kim a great doll. Here, made is an action verb. John made Kim a great doctor. Here, made is a copula verb. In indirect object and direct object, remember, we can interchange their positions. We can place the direct object first and we can bring the indirect object later. But when something is a complement, predicative complement, we cannot interchange their places. John made Kim a great doll. John made a great doll for Kim. So it means that here it is the direct and indirect objects and we can interchange their positions. John made Kim a great doctor. John made a great doctor Kim. We cannot interchange their places. So it means that a great doctor here is a complement, but a great doll was not a complement. Even though the italicized expressions here are both NPs, they function differently. The NP a great doll in 27a is the direct object, as in John made a great doll for Kim, whereas NP a great doctor in 27b cannot be an object. It serves as the predicate of the object Kim. If we think of a part of the meaning informally, only in the second example would we say that the final NP describes the NP came. So when something is an object, so it means that direct and indirect objects, they can change their positions. Ahmed gave flowers to this girl, or Ahmed gave this girl flowers. So I can change their positions. It means that one is a direct object and other is the indirect object. And usually indirect object comes first and then the direct object comes in English sentences. And when the indirect object, it is following the direct object, then preposition is made use of. Remember, in addition, phrases other than NPs can serve as predicative complements. Up till now, I have talked about that predicative complements are usually NPs, but an adjectival phrase can also be the complement. The situation became terrible. So terrible is an adjective, and terrible is telling us about the subject part of the sentence, that is the situation. This map is what he wants. So what he wants is telling us about this map. The message was that you should come on time. That you should come on time is telling us about the message. So they are the subjective complements. I made Kim angry. Angry is telling us about Kim. We cannot change here the places. We cannot say I made angry Kim. Wrong, because it is a complement. I consider him immoral. So immoral is telling us about him. So it is an objective complement. But at the same time, immoral is an adjective. So besides NP, the other phrase that we can have as a complement is the adjectival phrase or adjective. I regard Andrew the best writer. They spoil their kids rotten. The next part that I want to discuss here is called oblique complements or oblique objects. Dear audience, I have just explained that there is indirect object and then there is direct object, and they can be interchanged, okay, with no difference in meaning. But when something is a complement, it cannot be interchanged. Now we should move forward. Consider now the italicized expressions in 31. John put books in the box. John talked to Bill about the exam. She reminded him of the last time they met. They would inform Mary of any success they have made. These italicized expressions are neither objects nor predicative complements, since their presence is obligatory for syntactic well-formedness. They are called oblique complements. Remember, when an indirect object, which is coming before the direct object, it is taken to the, after the direct object, we make use of to preposition or for or from. So when preposition is added with the object, it becomes oblique object or oblique complement. And when something is an oblique complement or oblique object, it cannot be changed into the passive voice. Only the direct object, it can be converted into the passive voice. But something which is coming, the NP which is coming in oblique object or oblique complement, that NP cannot be converted into the passive voice. So it shows us that it is an oblique complement. These italicized expressions are neither objects nor predicative complements. Roughly speaking, oblique contrasts with the direct function of subject and object, and oblique phrases are typically expressed as PPs in English. PPs, prepositional phrases. John gave a book to the student. So we can say John gave the students a book. So I have interchanged the position. So here direct object as well as indirect object can be converted into the passive voice. But when we write indirect object after the direct object and we say John gave a book to the student, so to the student is an oblique complement or oblique object. So to the student cannot be converted into the passive voice. We cannot say to the student was given a book. Wrong. John bought a book for the student. Again, for the student is basically an indirect object because its position is changed. Direct object is written here first and then indirect object is written. So this indirect object is converted into an oblique complement or oblique object. So this for the student now cannot be converted into the passive voice. I can say a book was bought by John for the student, but I cannot say for the student was bought. Wrong. The PPs here, which cannot be objects since they are not NPs, also do not serve as predicate of the subject or object. They relate directly to the verb or they work as oblique complements or oblique objects. In the end, dear audience, I should summarize. We have talked about predicative complements. They are of two kinds, subjective complement and objective complement. If the complement NP is telling us about the subject of the sentence, it is subjective complement. If it is telling us about the object of the sentence, it is objective complement. Remember, when there are two objects, one is the indirect object and second one is the direct object. In this shape, both of them can be converted into the passive voice. For example, I can say, John gave students a book. Here, students is indirect object and book is direct object. But when we interchange their positions and we say, John gave a book to the student. So to the student, which is a PP now, which is an oblique object or oblique complement, it cannot be converted into the passive voice. Otherwise, direct and indirect objects both can be converted into the passive voice. But when we talk about complements, complements cannot be converted into the passive voice. And complements can be noun phrases or adjectival phrases. And they usually tell us about the subject part of the sentence or object part of the sentence. Thank you very much.